Morning, everyone. When I was living in Toledo going to college, I rearranged my course schedule to avoid any course that had to do with philosophy. My thinking was if a tree falls in the forest and does somebody hear it, doesn't really make an impact on my life. Entering religious life, I found out you need to have, at least back then, you needed to have at least a bachelor's in philosophy. So I spent my first 2 years doing philosophy studies with 18-year-old kids. I was 33 at the time. Still didn't like philosophy, but there was a Greek philosopher, Heraclitus, that made the statement, you can't step in the same river twice. I was the only one in the class that understood that, and I think it was because of my age. Things change, circumstances change, and things are never the same. You can't go back to your first love. You step in the river, already the rest of the current is down the stream. You can't step in that same river twice. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like change. I have a difficult time with it. In fact, I'll tell you a story. About 4 years after I was ordained, I was in a parish, and our provincial called me and said, Michael, we have a new job assignment for you. You're going to come back to Pennsylvania. You're going to be our vocation director for the community. Now, I like Pennsylvania. I love the trees in the fall, the vibrant colors. I love that first snowfall where everything seems perfect. But I also loved parish life, and I wasn't going to be able to do that. So I responded to our provincial by saying, thank you, but no. I said no to him actually twice. The third time he called, I recognized that I did take a vow of obedience. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And I didn't say it enthusiastically because I knew I was going to miss those things I loved. Entering into something new is scary territory. But during those 4 years of being vocation director, I learned a lot about myself. I learned about various gifts that I have that I never knew I had. And I never realized that the voice of God coming through my provincial was the voice of God. He said something I didn't want to hear, and I cringed, said no. With our first reading today, God is talking to Abram and saying, I'm going to make of you a great nation. Pick up your stuff and follow me. Abram doesn't say no. Abraham doesn't question. Abraham just goes. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know how long he was going to be gone for. Didn't know if he was going to come back. Now, for me, I knew what Pennsylvania was. I lived there before. I knew it was only a 2-hour car drive. I knew that after 4 years, I would probably be reassigned again. But I didn't answer in faith like Abram did. I can't imagine how scared he was at times. He was human. Did I hear God right? But he didn't whine or complain. He just said yes to God. In the gospel today, we hear about the transfiguration, which we always hear on the second Sunday of Lent. The disciples were afraid as well. They went up the mountain with Jesus. They saw the vision. The vision was given to them so that they would have faith in Jesus. Faith when people denied him. Faith when they saw the passion on Calvary. Faith when their own lives were endangered after the resurrection because of their belief. But Jesus says to them, don't be afraid. He must have said the same thing to Abram, because he says the same thing to us today. He tells us not to be afraid, to follow him. Oh, it can be scary not knowing what's behind that next curve in the road or next over the next hilltop. But God calls us to trust in him, to have faith that He's got something better planned for us. And we might not see what it is, but he's going to be with us through it all. We're given the next 6 weeks of Lent to ask ourselves, are we following God? Are we listening to his voice? Or are we holding on to the things that make us comfortable? Lent calls us to let go and trust, to leave our safety nets or our comfort zones. Maybe giving up stuff that make us feel safe and secure, scrolling through social media, maybe the foods or the drinks we like. Can we give it up for 6 weeks and trust that God is going to lead us someplace different, into a deeper relationship with him? But unlike Abram and unlike the apostles, we don't just have Jesus saying, don't be afraid. We have the scriptures to tell us how it all ends, that if we're faithful, we can be with him in the kingdom of God. We have our Eucharist where we receive Christ to say, I'm with you, don't be afraid. Are we willing to trust in his invitation and let him guide us to the promised land? Perhaps letting go of some of the baggage we cling to? Or are we simply going to wander lost in the desert of the secular world? The choice is ours. I encourage you for the next 6 weeks, grow closer to God by the works of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving.